I'm not gonna make the face. I'm not making the face. Okay.
Hello.
Welcome to our podcast.
This is it.
This is it.
Welcome.
This is the final episode.
We're never doing this again.
We're retiring.
Yeah.
I can't stand this anymore.
No, I kind of fucking hate this.
We have so
kid.
much tension in our relationship because of this. We were on a hike yesterday,
Yeah.
and we were just so stressed out. We
Yeah.
were like, what are we going to talk about today?
What are we going to do?
Oh my God. And then I
Holy
realized,
shit.
wait, why do I give a fuck?
Yeah.
And then it came to me. We should talk about not giving a fuck.
Yeah.
And
Not giving a fuck.
And also
Giving a fuck.
giving a fuck.
But there's a balance.
As there is in all things. Truly.
Yes.
Yes.
We need
True.
to find a balance.
The equilibrium. Homeostasis. Indeed. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
Damn right it is.
Damn right it is.
Damn right
Why
it
is that
is.
the biggest meme in the world?
What, the mitochondria?
Is the
Powerhouse
power
of
of...
the cell?
Everyone says that.
Because it is.
I mean,
It's-
facts.
I don't even
yeah.
know. Is it a meme? It's just, I feel like it's
No,
just
like
truth.
people just say it all
It's
the
just
time.
truth,
I feel like
you
I've
know?
heard that for the past 15 years of my life.
Didn't 15? I mean,
Yeah, ever since I learned
Maybe.
about it.
yeah, I guess so.
15 years ago. I remember it like it was yesterday.
4 scoring and 15 years ago.
The mitochondria.
The mitochondria.
Oh, man. Okay, but for
Um,
real, though.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Yeah, so the title of this episode, it's truly an amazing, unique title that Tyler came up with yesterday.
Thank you. Yes.
Props to him for that.
Thank you.
But it's really not as it seems, just like everything else in life. You
It's
know,
just not as it seems.
nothing is as it seems.
Nothing is as it seems.
Right? So it's not really, I don't give a fuck. I'm angsty. I don't care about anything.
Yeah.
Nothing bothers me. I'm indifferent to everything because I'm too
Yeah.
cool to be upset and sad and
Yeah.
whatever. It's not like that. Because that indifference is a negative thing,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah.
It's not, you act like it's a neutral thing, but it's really not.
Being
You know?
neutral is kind of.
Being neutral is being neutral.
Yeah.
Being truly accepting of whatever
Mm-hmm.
anything is,
Mhm.
right? Being indifferent is like there's still some level of anger or negative feelings towards that thing that you're indifferent towards,
Right.
right? And for me, bro, that was me like for most of my like
I
younger
would
teenage
agree with
years.
myself, yeah.
So angsty, so indifferent, so like I don't care about anything. Life sucks. God, I wish I could be a kid again. Like,
Yeah.
ugh.
Isn't that a funny thing? It's like, God, I wish I could be a kid again. Well, it's like, just
Dude.
change the way you view shit, you know?
Well, I
Stop giving a fuck and just be a kid.
in that situation, I wish I gave more of a fuck. I wish I realized all the things that were around me that I
Oh, in that sense.
could
yeah.
give a fuck about,
Right.
you know? Like,
The more important things that you should be giving a fuck about.
or just anything. Not the least important things, right?
Yeah.
The little things.
Mm-hmm.
Because all that entire time period, I would say most of high school, and even before that, I was starting to creep up into like middle school, and you know those times I was starting to creep into angsty, like I don't care about anything territory,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like that's a common sentiment among people,
Yeah.
especially around that age. You know, it's kind of a teenage stereotype.
Yeah. I'd say it's mainly high school. you know,
Yeah.
When it really starts to hit.
But why does
people.
that happen? Why?
I
mean,
don't
I think
know.
I know personally.
I mean, yeah, like I think for me at that point, you know, it'd probably be like sophomore, junior year when I was just like, yeah, like, you know,
Peak angst.
fucking yeah, whatever. Like I'm gonna do whatever the
Yep.
fuck I want.
Yeah.
And I think it was just because I don't know, life was feeling pretty fucking mundane at
Mhm.
that point, and it's like, well, if life is gonna be this boring, I might as well just do whatever the fuck I want and not care about shit.
But did you?
Yeah.
Or were you still filled with anxiety and still
Yeah,
avoiding
that's-
things?
that's what I mean by
know?
yeah. Like,
Because you weren't in your mind. You're like, oh yeah, I don't really care. Like
Yeah,
nothing
but
really
it's like-
bothers me, but everything bothers
yeah,
you.
I do
You
one
know?
thing and I'm thinking like, oh god, like everyone
Right.
just saw that. Like,
You're just filled in this.
yeah,
You know, you're in this mind space of just constant anxiety and questioning and wondering like, why is this like this? Why am I
It's like lying
relating?
to yourself when you try to tell yourself like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't care about this shit.
Oh, for sure. It's a defense mechanism, right? At its core.
Yeah.
When you feel something negative, you go into fight or flight mode mentally, and you're like, oh God, like I need to do something about this. I need to, I need to protect myself, right? Literally, that's what it feels like, and that's what produces the feeling of anxiety. And physically, you can feel that in certain ways, but mentally, you're going into battle mode, and you're like, okay, what do I got to do? I got to think about this. I got to think about that, and then what's next, and then the future, and then what about? Oh wait, but what about the past? Like I forgot about this thing, and like it's manic. It's literally it's psychosis, right?
Yeah, basically.
And we're
like on the verge of it.
And I don't know who fucking taught us that, but that's not how humans should deal with their problems, right?
No.
And especially at that age, what we don't have, like, compared to like what our problems are now, or the problems that we potentially can face as adults, we had nothing to worry about back then, right?
Quite
like,
honestly. I
in
mean, we had to
comparison.
worry about like classes and but like, what was I? No.
Were they really
not
that
really.
hard?
I
Like,
wasn't
were they?
really, like worrying about that.
I mean, I understand some people were in like AP classes, had a lot of pressure from their parents.
Yeah, like absolutely, school was an issue, I think, for like trying to get through it, and like the people that were super caught up in trying to get the best grades and shit. I'm sure that's pretty difficult, but like, sometimes I kind of wish I like cared more about like what I was doing in school, cause like I was just going by every single day like, fuck this class, fuck this, I don't want to.
You were just floating
like,
through life.
Yeah, I was just skating by, like barely, like even paying attention in classes and shit. Like,
I mean, I don't know. I think everyone's experience was a bit different, but I felt like a good majority of people felt similarly in that vein. Like it was just like, what's the point of all this? Why am I
even
doing
in college, dude? Like
it continued. Why would it stop after high school?
It
right?
just stop,
if you're that deep into it in high school, then why would it stop in college? I mean, I think for me, I was starting to kind of figure some things out during the end of high school, but not even close.
It was like certain classes for me. Like if we're talking like specifically about school currently, like it was like a lot of classes I just did not really care about.
You didn't give a fuck about it.
Put forth my best effort in any way, right? Just didn't care. But then it was like a couple select classes like I actually cared about and like gave a fuck. And I think it had a lot to do with like the teachers or professors that I had for those classes.
They gave a fuck.
Yeah, because if they gave a fuck, it made me want to give a fuck.
Of course, that's how it works, right?
Yeah.
It inspires you.
But yeah, all the other classes, it's like, professor wasn't cool, didn't seem to care about what they were doing, what they were teaching.
Yeah.
Same thing with
and
the
you're
teachers
like, why should
in
I
high
then?
school. Yeah, exactly. It's like, if you're not going to care, if you're not going to, put forth a strong effort, why the fuck would I?
Yeah, and I think the only reason people did in those situations where they had shitty teachers was because their parents were basically forcing them to,
I wouldn't even just say parents, but like, I mean, it's them themselves too.
Oh, for sure. But I think one of the biggest influencers when it comes to like educational pressure and like feeling like you need to perform a certain way in school, sports, academic, like all that stuff.
It does come from parents.
It mainly does come from parents, especially at that age.
Yeah.
As you get older, I mean, it can change a bit, but from what I remember, a lot of people had an immense amount of pressure on them to, get certain grades and, do certain things a certain way.
Yeah, some people are like told that you got to be a doctor,
right?
And it's like, okay, like I can't fuck up anything,
or you got to go to college or get a certain, ACT score or whatever.
You got to become a lawyer.
All that shit. It's like basically your parents are telling you what you should give a fuck about for you, right?
At that
point, they're deciding
it
for you.
Well, yeah, because at when you're younger and they're like kind of emphasizing the importance of education and like getting good grades and stuff like that, it kind of shifts your focus. Like once you get into those like harder classes like in high school and whatnot, like it shifts your focus. Like, wow, like this isn't elementary school easy shit. It's like I really need to buckle down and focus up because I don't want to disappoint my parents by not getting good grades. Like,
yeah, it's also not crazy like super difficult compared to, I don't know, like I think middle school is like kind of an intermediary stage. Kind of shows you a glimpse of what high school is like. In high school, I don't know, like looking back, I think in my experience, it didn't feel like, oh my God, this is crazy hard. I mean, there were points where I was super stressed out, but
but that kind of ties in for me, like for not just like caring about my classes. Like I would do the bare minimum, and like I wouldn't you know, I wouldn't stress about it. I would get like grades back, you know,
Mm-hmm.
get like a C or D on something. I'm like, okay, like,
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, for me, I was trying to get good grades. Like I tried at some level,
Yeah.
right? But my parents didn't like constantly badger me about it, which was nice, and they never really made me feel like if I don't get good grades, then there's going to be a consequence
Yeah.
in the way of like them being
Punishing
disappointed in
you
me
or
or
something,
punishing
yeah,
me
like-
or whatever. So that was nice, and I think it not having that pressure made it so I could make my own decision and be like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do good in my classes, but I'm not gonna lose my mind trying to do good in my classes. So
Yeah.
like I got B's and some A's and occasional like I maybe got 1 or 2 C's, which was fine. But yeah, I think in terms of high school, I don't know. It's just weird to think about how you're building the foundation of things that you care about and don't care about during those times, especially. And, you know, once you get out of high school and go into college, or if you don't go to college, it's kind of like, oh shit, like what do I do with all these fucks I give and don't give? You know, like what are these?
What am
like,
I supposed to do with
what
this?
are these set of rules that I made for
Right.
myself, and what do I do with them now?
Right.
And I think really the only thing you can do is fucking throw them out in the garbage.
Yeah.
And start fresh again with whatever you're doing now with life,
Yeah, I think that's a good. Yeah.
because they're not going to apply the same
Yeah.
to whatever you're doing
And-
after high school.
Yeah, and I
They're not.
definitely like getting into my first year of college, like I was kind of just holding on to that same shit, like kind of floating by with my classes, and you know,
Doesn't work the same.
professors sucked, didn't enjoy the classes I was taking, so I would like not going to classes and doing stuff, just keeping up the same habits that I like had built from high school, and then like had a really awful first semester.
Yep.
And then it's like,
that's
you
the
know, it's kind of
consequence.
like realization point. Then I was like, wow, I just really fucked up this whole semester that,
Yeah.
you know, like my parents paid for, and that sucks.
Yeah.
Like that sucks a lot. I have to retake classes. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, wow, like what am I doing here now?
Yeah, my first semester of college too, I was taking anatomy, and that was a motherfucker, and
Yeah.
I failed my first 2 tests, and I was like, oh, this is different. Like, oh, I need to
It's like a wake up call.
I need to tackle this differently.
Yeah.
You know,
You gotta reorganize your fucks and
you gotta
no fucks.
you gotta create a whole new strategy. You got
Yeah.
a whole new battle plan.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing. I mean, you're forced to adapt, or you kind of get fucked, right?
Right.
I mean, at least in terms of school. There's so many other ways that applies. I think.
Oh, yeah,
If
absolutely.
you go out of high school and you start working right away, like a full-time job, and you're kind of just going through the motions, and well, that's the thing too. If you just start working out of high school, what's the next goal, right? If you're doing a job full time, and then what's next, right? Because that's the feeling you have for most of your life getting out of high school, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, and then you get out of college and it's the same thing. It's like, what's the next move? You get
Yeah.
a job, and then it's like, okay, and now what? Like,
Yeah.
it's the same thing if like you're gonna work right out of high school. It's like
Same
you
shit.
just hit this point of like,
What's my next goal?
oh yeah, what now? Like,
And that's, I don't know. I feel like that prioritization of your mind and like the way that you're thinking about life is very toxic, you know, to have. You're in search of something, right? You're looking for something, right?
yeah, something to like kind of fill this like what?
This void.
Like, yeah, void. Like, what am I doing? Like,
Because most of your life it was filled with a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah.
School achievements, sports achievements,
yeah,
friendship achievements, and maybe a
friendship achievement.
no, I mean like having friends and a social
Yeah,
life, you
yeah.
know, like
Yeah, like
maybe some
going out on-
relationship
yeah.
stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And so you fill all that stuff, and you look in the hole, and you're like, wait, it's empty still. You know, like all this stuff is not even
You're like,
tangible.
wait, I gave all these fucks and it's still empty.
I have nothing now.
There's no more fucks to give.
You're like, shit. And dude, that's like basically giving all of yourself for all these external things.
Yeah.
You look inside, you're like, I have nothing.
Yeah.
I'm numb. I have, I'm empty. And that's the feeling of, I don't know, I think that has a lot to do with depression and
Ties in with so many things.
mental health issues, man.
Yeah.
Like feeling lost, feeling completely void of emotions and feelings, and, you know, and then that's when you start to romanticize your past, I think, too. Like,
Yeah.
especially when you were a kid.
Or the future, like
Or the
if
future,
I just get this done and I can get to this
and that's where
point.
the anxiety comes in
Mm-hmm.
when you start thinking about the future. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, like what if I could do this? But like, oh no, but like I failed this in the past, so I don't know if I could do this. Or oh, but like I've always been this way, so I can't do this.
Yeah.
You know, like, and then you're like just an anxious mess of
Yeah.
insecurities and all these different things, man.
Yeah.
You're just conditioned to act a certain way, and then you feel stuck.
Absolutely.
And then maybe you stay stuck for a few years
Mm-hmm.
and trying to figure it out in your 20s, right? Like,
What is there to figure out?
what is there to figure out, right? But I get it, because your mind is telling you need to figure it out,
Right.
You need, or maybe people in your life are telling you you need to figure it out, especially parents. They give you this
Right.
insane amount of pressure, especially after high school. I think a lot of parents are like, okay, what are you going to do?
Yeah,
you
like,
know, like
what school?
now you're an adult, you know?
What school? What major? You know, what career path you gonna? It's like, why
Yeah.
do I need to do this all like right fucking now?
Right, and
Like,
that's, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't think that's a very fair thing to do to someone who just turned 18, someone who's still figuring out who they are, figuring out things
Yeah.
internally, never really had any guidance to things that have been happening internally for the past however many years. And so, again, you give them another set of goals to go after. And also you're like, oh, but you also need to be responsible, and you need to start, paying for this stuff and
Yeah.
doing adult things. And
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, that's a lot of pressure, man. Like,
Yeah.
fuck.
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying that answer is like, oh, just let them, sit at home and do
don't
nothing.
Give them any
right?
guidance.
Like,
Just
no, I'm not saying that, but I think it's kind of a parent's job, and also just a person's job themselves to be like, okay, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Right? What am I doing, and why am I acting the way I'm acting? Is it based on just what my parents have told me to do in my life? Is it based on just all these societal pressures that I'm just reacting to and acting in a certain way because I feel like I should, right? Or I should go in this direction because that feels right, and oh, maybe I'll make money, or maybe I'll feel happy in doing this, and it's like
my friend is doing this, maybe I'll do that. Because
right? Are you even choosing anything?
right?
Are you even
for yourself? Like, or are you
Yeah.
just like going with what other people suggest? And
yeah? Do you have any freedom of choice in that situation?
yeah,
And that goes into a whole conversation about free will and shit like
Yeah.
that, which is, I think, interesting
it's a
as fuck.
whole different thing.
I think really the only free will we have, in a sense, is how we react to certain things that happen in life, because things are going to happen regardless of most of the things that we choose to do. So our reaction to things, our relationship to things, and also, I mean, I think there are a few pretty like specific things that you can control within your own experience, right? I would say like diet, exercise, mental health, taking care of your mental health,
Right.
in certain ways, maybe
Yeah.
meditating, hopefully if you can go to therapy, shit like that. Those are all very like good maintenance things.
Yeah,
right?
those are things you can control, and personally, like, those are the fucks that you should be giving, right?
Absolutely. You need to, the priority of fucks starts with yourself. It really
Yeah,
does.
yeah.
It has to, right? The priority
Yeah,
of fucks.
I know. It's just the terminology.
Yeah, I
on
love
it. The order of fucks to
The
give.
order of fucks has decided. Yeah, but no, really, I think you have to look at yourself as the utmost priority among anything else in your experience. That's the only option.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone ever felt like that was a selfish thing to do, or you were told that, or you felt like if you gave a fuck about yourself too much, then you'd forget about other people, or like other people would not like you. But like, it just doesn't make any sense.
No.
Right? And there's no excuse for not giving a fuck about yourself.
Like it's a tough thing to like think about. Like, man, I need to be the number one priority. Like even for me, like, it's something that I'm still working on in that sense, because
Same,
like
yeah.
when I do feel like I'm focusing on myself more than other people and other things going on, it's like, like in college, let's say, like when I was in the house with my roommates who I didn't get along with all that well, and there was issues, and all I did was kind of sit inside my room and not do shit. Like,
Avoid, yeah.
some people would like hit me up, and I'd be like, yo, like, I'm not really trying to do anything. And that was like just for me, because I'm like, yeah, like, I don't want to go out to a bar, like,
Right.
I don't want to go drink, I don't want to go
Right.
fucking hang out with a group of people that I don't enjoy. Like, I had my group of friends that I would hang out with sometimes, but even then, like, I didn't always like feel like I wanted to go out. Like I just wanted to like be by myself and do my own thing. And like after a while, like I kind of like felt bad. It's like am I just like kind of shutting these people out? Like,
well, I think that also has a lot to do with societal pressure of like you need to act a certain way when you're in college. You need to do certain things with people, and kind of you feel like you're obligated to party and drink and participate in the culture of college, right? Which is pretty meaningless.
Right, absolutely.
Almost completely
I agree
meaningless.
now, like outside of college, but like
because I think the only big factor is recognizing the type of person you are. Are you more introverted? Do you enjoy more introverted activities? Do you enjoy solitude? It's okay to just hang out with yourself, man.
Absolutely,
like,
and that's something that I think people don't totally understand, and it's something that it's taken me a while to understand too. Because like absolutely, I've been in a mindset where like I feel like I didn't feel right being alone. Right, and I know for a fact, like, I've talked to many people who are just like who would agree and say like similar things. Like, like when I'm alone, I get anxious. When I'm alone, like I don't feel right. When I'm alone, I'm
not
sad,
doing something,
right?
You know,
and so it's like, okay, like would you, in that sense, they're like, well, okay, would you rather be sad and alone, or would you rather be out, going out to bars and doing fun stuff? And like, it's like,
distracting.
Of course, like, it's distracting yourself from. What were we talking about yesterday? It was
distracting yourself from the feelings the negative feelings that you're having. Right.
But like you're distracting yourself at the same time. Like when, like, say you're like alone, like watching Netflix. And
right.
shit,
so yes,
you're like distracting yourself from distractions.
Right. So yes. So in that situation, let's say you're away at college. Like in your situation, you were playing Xbox. Probably you were, fucking around. You weren't like just sitting there with your thoughts and like trying to deal with this stuff, right? Like you were just like distracting yourself in whatever way possible.
Yeah.
And also, you had those people like saying, oh, hey, like you want to come out, whatever. And you were like avoiding that. But if you were to go along with that, then you're not doing anything. You're distracting yourself from that distractions that you were already distracting yourself with. Right. So it's just more layers of distraction.
Yeah. It's adding another layer to it.
Which makes it more complicated. Right. Because it might give you a feeling of like, oh, I'm going out with friends. I feel good. I'm having fun. I'm enjoying this, which is great.
Yeah.
But
absolutely, yeah. Like we don't want to like demonize like fucking going out with people and having
I think it
fun.
can. Yeah. I think it's like, okay to distract yourself sometimes when things are a bit tough, you know. But be honest with yourself. About it.
It's more so about how you interact with it than once you're back. Yeah. Like say you go out for a night, you have a good time. Like how do you then sit with yourself again once you're back in your dorm room or house or whatever alone?
Right. Or are you gonna keep on continuing to create a habit around distracting yourself from the things that you need to deal with. Right. Yeah. And to be honest, that's another thing that people have been practicing their whole lives, though. Right.
Distraction. Exactly.
Distraction. People, most of our culture.
Distraction, multitasking. All these things.
All that.
Like,
right.
Yeah.
In school, outside of school, at home. Right?
Occupation.
Everything. All of it is meant to be like that. Right. So that's why it feels nearly impossible for most people to even think about that possibility of, wait, I can just sit with myself and just contemplate certain things and question like why I am like, because that's scary.
Ask myself how I'm feeling.
Right. And it's scary because people don't know how to do that, even though it's pretty simple. Right.
Right.
And they don't know what's going to happen if they do that.
Well, I think it's scary too, because a lot of times you might ask yourself, how am I feeling? And your answer might be like shitty. Like, I feel like shit.
Right. And of course you do. Yeah. Right. Because you've probably been living in solitude mentally and just constantly barraging yourself with anxious thoughts and feelings and depression and all this fucking shit.
You're like isolating yourself.
Right. And it's just creating a hole and digging and digging and digging and digging. And I get it, like it happens. It happens very subtly, I think,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's not just like one day, like bam, like.
And the biggest tragedy is that people convince themselves that this is normal, right? This is life. I'm just going to feel like this, right? And it happens early on, man. I think in high school, a lot of people have already convinced themselves that this is just how life is, right? And that's sad, man. That's truly sad. I think people lose hope or almost lose hope, right?
Yeah.
It's like they just don't know what to do, how to do it. And even if they don't have the motivation either.
Yeah.
There's no energy.
Well, yeah.
right?
So then at that point, they just kind of go on with like societal norms and
Right,
whatever
and just
of,
being
like,
indifferent
of,
towards
like,
everything.
Yeah,
and
it's
just,
like this is what I'm told to do, so I'm just gonna kind of roll with it. Like,
and what is that? Right?
Yeah.
Is that life?
like
You know, that's
how do you feel? Shit. Yeah. So why do you keep doing?
right. Do you think life's meant to feel like shit? That's
right,
the real
no,
question.
You're not supposed to feel shitty.
I
all
don't
the
believe
time.
so. I think I used to have this view when I was in high school that like, oh, I don't want to be happy. I just want to be like okay with everything. You know?
Yeah, because at that point it's like, oh, like, you know, I feel like ass right now. I don't feel happy. Like
I'll just settle for
I'll
okay.
settle for okay. Like as long as I can, like, you know,
Yeah.
have a good day
Yeah.
in a week, you know, that'd be cool.
And
But it's
that's
like
no, it's not
that's
enough, man.
kind of lowballing that.
It's lowballing as fuck. It's not
Yeah.
even on the chart, man.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's just as depressing in a sense because you're like, oh, I guess I'll
Yeah,
settle.
because then it's like
Yeah.
that's like the happiness you're trying to achieve, and it's like you hit that, and you're like, wow, like I still feel like shit.
Wow. Wait, I'm at this okay level, but I still feel like
Yeah.
shit.
But okay isn't great.
Okay is not even good.
No, yeah,
it's
dude.
okay.
Okay is just okay.
Right. What the fuck is that?
Yeah.
It doesn't, and that's the sad part is people will just settle for it, you know, in every aspect of their life, I believe.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Got an okay job, had an
Yeah.
okay education,
Okay education,
has an okay wife,
Okay relationship.
has an okay,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Okay
whatever.
families.
Yeah.
Situation.
Has okay friends, you know.
My hobbies are okay.
Yeah.
I don't really have any.
Yeah.
You know,
dude, oh god.
oh my god.
Life is okay.
Right, it's just
life is okay.
It's truly depressing to hear like the general consensus among people nowadays, you know? It truly makes me feel sad.
Yeah.
Right? To notice how downtrodden people are mentally.
Right.
You know, like they've just convinced themselves absolutely that
This is it.
this is it, man.
There's nothing
know?
more to it.
There's no
I'm content with this.
they're not but they convince themselves that they are content, but they're really not.
Yeah, it's
you know?
It goes in with the first episode maybe, like about delusions. It's a delusion that you're kind of creating. Like, okay, like I am happy. I'm content with this
Right.
life that I have right now.
And it's very easy to fall into that delusion
Yeah.
because you're just playing games with your own
Yeah.
mind.
If you
know?
ask yourself, "Am I happy?" and your answer is no, and you still find yourself trying to convince yourself
That's
that you
okay.
are, like,
Right. Or that's okay. You know,
right? Or
oh, I'm not
that's
happy. That's
okay.
fine.
Yeah.
You know,
and
like,
you're just like, okay, yeah, I'm cool.
you're like, you know
I'm
what?
cool
You're not
with
supposed to be
being
happy all the time. It's fine. Whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're supposed to be happy.
Right.
Like,
I was
out of
just
your-
about to say, like,
No.
you can't be happy 24/7. Like,
I think the idea of happiness though has been very skewed.
Yeah.
Right.
I would agree.
Happiness is not some state of being where you're just like, la di da di da, like I'm just skipping through life. I'm so joyful and just
Yeah.
bubbly. No, man. No. I think true happiness, true joy is something internal, right?
Oh,
That
yeah.
It has to do with peace. It has to do with acceptance. It has to do with just accepting everything as it is and being content with it. Truly content.
Yeah, not
And-
a delusional content
Right.
where you're
And
like,
the
okay.
The joy
whatever.
comes from not having all these things weigh you down, right? The joy comes from just being, right?
Right.
It's nothing else. It's not dependent on anything,
Right.
right? And so that's something that I could say and sit here and talk about, but that's not a concept that people can really just like, oh yeah, like you said that, okay, now I'm happy, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not a translatable
Yeah.
thing. So my suggestion for people who may be in situations like that, see for yourself,
Yeah.
right? Go see for yourself. Is life really supposed to be like this? Can I raise the standard
Ask
of life?
those questions.
You know?
Yeah, like literally ask those. I feel like a lot of people just don't ask themselves.
They're not
these
curious.
questions. Like, am I happy? Is life supposed
You
to be
need
like
to
this?
be curious.
Yeah.
That's the first thing you need to do is be curious about your experience.
Yeah.
Why does this feel this way? Why is this a negative thing? Why do I have a problem with this situation? Why do I have a fucked up relationship with my family
It's
or
like
friends?
it's like
you know?
stop accepting things at the surface level.
Don't accept them
right?
at any level.
Right? Because like if someone comes up to you and they're like, I don't know, they just tell you some bullshit thing that you're not like educated on, but you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But like you're just taking it at surface value. Like
Yeah.
it could just be a total like falsified lie, right?
Well,
Like,
when it comes to knowledge too, I think it's more of a, you know, just I think question like certain things that are
yeah,
like beliefs,
Mhm.
right? Held beliefs, stereotypes, certain
Yeah.
things that are just like, oh, like that's just something that's the way it is, right?
Yeah. Oh, here's a better example. So like growing up a Catholic, you know, we're told that like we're supposed to pray, we're supposed to, you know, love God, we're supposed to, you know, read the Bible, do all this shit, right? Whatever. And like it's like God is our savior, you know, Jesus died for our sins, and you know, therefore
all that jazz.
You know, we have to be Catholic, right? Because if we're not Catholic, we're going to, you know, it's like that shit. It's like if I didn't just like question that and be like, well, is this making sense to me? Like, am I just gonna take this at the surface level of what my like pastor, of what my, you know, faith class leader or whatever is telling me, or am I gonna dive deeper into it on my own time and figure out if I really believe in this, if I really like can find a standing with that? Like
the biggest, that's a very good thing to bring up. I think you need to really ask yourself the question of, are the beliefs that I hold, the views that I have towards things in life, the way that I think about things, and the actions that I take consequently, are those causing me suffering?
Yeah.
And get to the core, the source of it. Because that belief, you don't even have to think about it. It's just like it's like a subconscious thing that you need to really investigate and be like, oh, and it'll come out when situations come up right in front of you, right? And you'll be like, oh, wait, I feel this way about this, or I think this way about it. Like, what is that? You know? Why is that already concrete like that? You know? Why is it not flexible?
Right.
Why is it not something that I have an awareness of? You know? And you need to really ask yourself, by holding this belief, by, you know, in the case of being Catholic, by thinking that, oh, I'm going to go to hell if I don't act a certain way. If I don't do this, I won't be happy. Is that causing you suffering? And if it is, why are you still doing it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, actually, though. Because, like, it's just, it's such a silly thing for, like, us to, if we're still talking in terms of, like, Catholicism and stuff like that.
Just
like,
any religion, really.
Just, like, if we're talking in terms of that stuff, and it's, like, if it's, like, yeah, like, if you don't, you know, if you drink, if you have sex, if you do this, if you do anything that's, like, against, like, the principles of your religion and shit, it's like you're going to hell. Like, you're making God, you're making whoever unhappy, and, you know, you're ruining your life by doing that. But it's like, are you really? Like, you don't, like,
I don't think so.
Who's really saying that? Like, do you think the person or entity or whatever that created all of this, like, would really give a fuck if you're just like, oh yeah, you know, like,
you would think not.
I'm saying the word fuck, you know, I'm gonna go to hell for that. Like,
you would hope not. That's pretty.
Yeah, it's like
that's a pretty low bar.
Yeah, it's a low bar. Again, same thing. Like that's what you're settling for. Like, you can't like live your life because some guy told you that,
pretty
like,
lame.
if you do this, you're going to hell.
It's
or
pretty
something.
lame,
like,
man. I would genuinely feel like that's just kind of like boring. To think that way. Like, oh, you do one little thing, like say fuck, or you, I don't know, have sex with someone because I don't know, you're horny. Yeah. Like, oh, gee willikers, what are you gonna do?
Gee willikers.
Like, what the it goes, if you realize this very basic idea that your beliefs about religion, life, whatever, you know, you have those, and then you experience something that goes against that, and you fight that experience and be like, no, but I thought this way my whole life, so it has to be right. If you create this ego identity around your beliefs, it becomes even harder and harder to crack that and replace it. Yeah. So I understand why people think that way. Right. I do. I truly am compassionate
and those,
towards that.
To an extreme, those are like the people that are like, oh, you know, if you have an abortion, you know, you're taking a life away, and God's gonna hate you, and blah blah blah, right? And like all that, like extremist like viewpoints, like those people that, like, if you try to say one thing that doesn't go with their beliefs and what they like have as their ideals, then you're demonized and you're a piece of shit, and you whatever, everything you're doing is wrong. Like,
and that's just when people are doing that, it's just a way of making themselves feel.
It's protecting themselves. It's like a defense mechanism for their ego.
Yeah,
like.
Their ego it's doing its own thing. Yeah. They're not even choosing to do it. You know?
It's just like an automatic system.
Literally.
It's like taking over.
It's like a fucking it's like a laser system that's like activating, you know, in reaction to like people moving through it, or like ideas that go against themselves moving through it. It's like target activated, like
detecting a threat, like fucking full
body
ego, armor, like oh, you can't get an abortion. You're just freaking out.
Literally. And it's funny to an extent. It's funny to look at those people and be like, that's cringy, like that's goofy.
Yeah.
But at the basic core of it, it's something that we all do.
Yeah.
Right? It's something that we all do on a day-to-day basis in very subtle ways.
Yeah, to an extent. Yeah, absolutely.
To a very large extent. So I understand the, like, fuck anti-abortion, anti-vax people, like, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know? But, like, don't write them off because the reason why they're suffering may be very similar to the reason why you're suffering, too. You know?
Yeah,
so
you can always find similarities and
yes,
stuff like that.
absolutely.
You know?
And they're still trying to be happy, as diluted as it may look.
Yeah.
You know, like, and
they're
as
just,
it
they're
is.
just kind of lost in the sauce.
Yeah, and they think that
way than you're lost in the
you know,
sauce. Like
maybe they've just convinced themselves that if they can, change people's views on abortion, then they'll be happy.
Yeah,
right. Or
yeah,
some
dude. But
crazy
like
shit
that probably is it. Like the people that are like the extreme like activists of like like pro-life stuff like that. Like
or any extreme
like
view. Right?
like so like what is their goal then? Just to change everyone's mind in America, and then their mission's accomplished, and it's like
what happens after
like
that?
don't like God, I got you. Like I'm carrying on your mission.
I don't
like,
know what the ultimate goal is there.
Yeah,
I think it's really the internal goal for them is proving that to themselves that their ego is right. They are right.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Right?
It's like it's
validation.
the whole point of validation of like trying to would you rather be right or would you rather be happy?
Yeah, and
right?
they would rather be right.
They would rather be right because they think that's going to make them happy.
Even if it pushes away all the people in their lives,
right.
even if
even if they demonize like half the fucking country, right?
Like even if you're talking about flat earthers and all that shit, it's the same shit. You know, like you just end up in the same hole of ego and identifying with meaningless shit.
Yeah,
and that's where the not giving a fuck happens internally.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not because you're not when you're younger, it's like, oh, I don't give a fuck about these external things. Like I don't care. But you're not realizing that there's a connection between the thought of, oh, I don't care about this and the in between. I don't care about this, but what's in between that, right?
Yeah.
What's the feeling of not caring about that? What is the connection there?
Yeah.
Right? And realizing that connection is the key, right? Because that's your relationship to everything.
Right. And
if you have a truly neutral relationship towards everything and try to cultivate that towards every aspect of life, there's nothing that's worth not being neutral about, right?
Right.
And truly accepting, even the worst shit,
right?
So if you start to really do that with every little thing, that's kind of the key. But man, it takes work, a lot of fucking work. I think you really got to spend a lot of time sitting with yourself and accepting what are some of your biases, what are some of your beliefs that are again causing you suffering, what are some of the things that you're doing actively that are causing you suffering, right? There's so many little ways.
I was gonna say it could be as little as like last week I was making a joke about country music and how it's not good and I don't like it, right? And sometimes you might hear people playing country and you're like, oh, I can't believe they're listening to country, or like like the new wave rap stuff too. Like personally, like for me, like I don't enjoy it, and like it's taken me quite some time to be like, okay, like people have their other interests. Like I can't just be like, yeah, this person's stupid because they're listening to like this artist or like this genre of music. Like they're just experiencing their life in their own way with their own interests. And,
it's
like,
irrelevant.
What's wrong with that? Right?
It's completely
and like
irrelevant.
what good does it do to me to be like, oh yeah, like I listen to this music then, and like this is the good music. Like
the want to,
it's like an elitist view.
Yeah,
like it's silly.
You want to feel like it's like a comparative thing. Yeah. Right? Like I have a better taste in music
than you do. Trying to justify myself more so.
You're trying to justify your ego.
Yeah.
You're trying to feed your ego without even realizing it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's the biggest trick that we do to ourselves, right? But it's programmed, right? We're conditioned. That's how it works, man. It's not like our ego isn't just like from birth, like, all right, I'm ready to fuck your life up, Like, no. Other people feed into your ego. You feed into your own ego most of all.
Yeah, most of all.
But it has to start with something external, right? Because when you're a baby, you don't have control over a lot of your environmental stuff, right? A lot of the things around you that are happening.
Right.
And what people teach you, right? More
yeah,
importantly.
you have zero control over that.
Zero. You don't even have a choice.
Yeah.
And it's like, if your parents are shit, man, is it tough to get out of that.
It goes in like the free will thing, like, if you're born as an infant, which everyone is,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have a choice for like X amount of years,
A long
like,
time.
of anything that you're fucking doing in
And
your life.
even when you become an adult, it can feel like you have no choice
Yeah.
because you didn't have a choice for most of your life,
Right.
and now you're lost in this ego
Mhm.
battle and just
Mhm.
constantly, questioning everything. And
Right. It's like now
anxiety,
I have, like,
depression,
now I'm 25, living on my own, and I have the freedom to do what I want. And
But you
not be-
can't.
But you can't, because it's like, how do I
You're
do
trapped.
that? Yeah. How
you
do
know?
I do that?
You're
Like, I've
in-
been told what to do my whole life.
Yeah,
like,
you're internally trapped, and you don't know how to act on your
Mhm.
own because you were never taught to.
right.
Right? And so I think the process people need to go through is teaching themselves how to, do things for themselves,
Yeah.
completely for themselves,
Mhm.
right? Without any thought of anything else outside of themselves,
Mhm.
right? So it's like when people say, oh, like I'm going to focus on myself, does that mean like focusing on yourself is like, oh, I'm going to go like just have fun and go out with my friends and hook up with people and like just not give a fuck? What is
Yeah.
that? What is that,
Yeah.
right? Does focusing on yourself mean distracting yourself from what you know you need to work on? No.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's okay to have fun. Don't get me wrong, right? I think focusing
Absolutely.
on yourself also has a lot to do with just seeing what truly makes you, content. Like, what can you enjoy out of this external experience, right?
Yeah.
What are things that you enjoy doing, right?
What are some like individual activities that I
Yeah.
enjoy? That's something that took me a long time to try to understand, because like referencing back in college again, like I spent a lot of time just like in my room playing Xbox, like chatting with my friends.
It's an
and
easy
shit,
default.
a very easy default,
Yeah.
and it's like it's fun. I enjoy it. It's a hobby of mine, 100%. But it's like I found myself like falling into it. Like there would be days where I'm like playing Xbox. I'm like, I don't even fucking want to play.
Yeah,
anything,
you don't
and
even
I'm just
want
playing
to.
anyway. I'm just like sitting
Right.
there like just angry. I'm like, dude, like this game sucks. I'm fucking done with this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't even do this anymore. But then I play it anyway because I'm like, oh, what else am I gonna do?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
you can't default to distraction is the thing there. And that's something that, again, we've been taught to do. That's the way our society works. That's the way that people expect you to act.
Right.
And so it's hard to not do that. I mean, shit, I'm still working on that too, man. Like there's always days where I feel more inclined to distraction. I feel less aware and more inclined to just, I want to sit on my phone for the next 30 minutes. I want to play a video game or watch a show and just turn my brain off, right? Because, yeah, it can be tiring to interact with your mind and try and fight it and battle it and blah, blah. But you don't need to do that. That's not what we're saying either. Like, you don't need to, like, fucking fight and go to war with every idea and belief
Right.
and, like, past trauma that you have.
Right.
You know? Like, it's not like that, man. Just sit with it. Sit with all of it. Every single thing that comes up, just sit with it and watch it. You don't
Yeah.
need to do anything. Just
right.
watch.
Yeah, you don't need to actively do anything.
Just
you just
observe.
Need to just sit with it. Yeah.
Right. Just observe it. And
See
that's,
how it makes you feel.
yeah, and observe your own, what's happening, but you just need to note it, right? You
Yeah.
don't even
You don't need to label it. You don't need to.
you don't even need to verbally, like internally verbally, like do anything, right? You can just it's just a deeper knowing, like this is happening. This is happening. That's happening, right? And once you start to do that more and more and create a habit around that, you can start to dissect and contemplate, oh, this is happening. Why is this happening? Can I change this from happening? Right? Can I do something externally that would change that, or can I do something internally that can change that, right? It depends on what kind of issue it is, right? I think there's a lot of ways you can also interact with external things to change internal things. Not in the sense that like, you're trying to do this or that, but like giving yourself a chance, right? In a sense. So when I say that, I mean eating healthy, right? I mean working out. I mean meditating, choosing to just sit down, even if you feel like absolute shit, and just meditate for 5 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, if
You
even.
know? Like making that a habit every single day is insanely life-changing. Insanely. So that's where you really should give a fuck, right? Just forcing yourself to do certain things that are out of your normal habitual distractions, right? And really prioritizing those things that will give yourself more of a chance to,
If you're feeling like shit every day, like physically, something you could do, start eating healthy, work out a little bit, go
Yeah.
for a walk, go for a light jog, something like that. If you're feeling like shit mentally, sit down, do a quick meditation, like you said. Go see a therapist.
Clear it up.
It's like, do the things that you you should be doing because you know that they can help you, like, feel better in that sense.
It gives you a chance to really start doing the work,
Yeah.
the real work.
Yeah.
You know, that's like I would say all of those things, meditation, eating healthy, dieting, they're not all on the same level, but those are all preliminary things that you need in order to start building a new foundation.
Yeah.
Right?
It's starting healthier habits than just, you know, fucking sitting on your computer for 8 hours a day thinking that's, you know,
well, and that's
a
why
good way
people
to distract yourself. Like,
again, that's why people feel like life gets so monotonous and boring and it's just the same shit, because it is.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're letting it be.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like you're not changing anything, so of course it's going to be monotonous. Like,
if the things that you're doing are exactly the same, it's going to feel the same. Right? What else do you expect?
Right.
These things in life are not going to give you different things than or more than what they actually are, right? These experiences are the same, right? They may change a little bit here and there, you know, if like maybe your job is one that's a little bit more interesting, but you can't depend on that.
Right.
No, you can't.
can't.
And that's just one little area, right? So I've met a lot of people who are like halfway there, you know, like they'll, you know, have a good job, maybe a okay relationship, but like maybe they have a terrible relationship with their family members and like they're constantly like having problems with that and dealing with that shit, or maybe they have a shit diet and they have health problems and all that stuff. So it's like you can't just have one or two things and then just be like, oh, this is good enough. You know? Like,
because that's settling again, right?
Like, you're settling.
It's okay.
And so your life is like, the standard is like, I'm like half good, half shit, and it drags the whole thing down when it's half shit. So
it weighs a lot more than
and so you have to literally go from all angles, man, and work on all these different streams, you know, all these different streams of development. You have to work on each of them. And sometimes you can work on multiple at the same time just because they affect each other, you know? So like if you're working on, you know, maybe your relationship, right? If it's a romantic relationship, you're working on that. You're working on how to communicate better and be more empathetic and be more communicative. By doing that, you may also strengthen your familial relationships and your work relationships because you're learning how to be a better human, right? And that's huge, right? So again, you have to realize that there's always work to be done. There's never an end, right? There's never I figured this part of my life out. I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Right.
And I wouldn't say worry about it, you know?
Yeah.
It's a balance of giving a fuck and not giving a fuck, right? It's looking at this thing like, yes, I need to prioritize doing practical things that I know will improve this part of my life, but also don't get too attached to the idea that I need this to change immediately or else, right?
Yeah.
You cannot get attached to needing to change things or else, right?
Right.
You just look at it as a process, right? A constant process.
Yeah, I was about to say it's a process. It's
always
ongoing process.
Always going on. But I think another thing is people want this instant gratification, man.
Yeah, that's definitely something that, you know, I struggle with is
we all do,
gratification, right? Yeah, and
we want a quick fix.
Yeah,
right. We want a quick fix to our problems. We don't want to have to put in too much work or effort, because in a lot of different ways, there are a lot of quick fixes to things nowadays, right? Something's going wrong, like we're trying to do some, you know, flooring in our house, or like trying to fix like some household issue. Just go on YouTube, look that shit up, boom, done. And which is amazing, right? That's fucking great. You couldn't do that 20 years ago,
right?
But even in little ways, right? Like, I'm feeling a little bit like, you know, sad or like just like kind of lazy. I'll just go on my phone and just entertain myself for 20 minutes. You know, it's like when you're training yourself to do that, it's going to happen in all other areas of your life,
right?
And it's going to spread like a poison. And so you have to stop that at some point and replace it with a new way of living that is not just constantly, you know, trying to distract and like get that instant thing, and realize that these, you know, figuring out life, figuring out your purpose, figuring out how to be happy, truly happy, it's an ongoing thing. Always, 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 always. And, you know, I guess in some ways there's end goals spiritually, you know, if we're talking about enlightenment, or if we're talking about like reaching pure awareness or consciousness, and like, but that's a whole nother thing. I just want people to be at least at a basic level of like non-suffering, right?
Yeah.
Not actively suffering, right? And I don't know, it seems to me like people are just so caught up with all that stuff,
Yeah,
man. Like
absolutely.
it's just a
Well,
non-stop
you can tell just
thing.
when you like interact with someone.
The
right?
feeling,
like,
man.
Just,
The way they talk.
the way
way they
that
act.
you say like, hey, like, how's it going, man? Like, you know, say it's a friend you had for a while that you don't see all that often. You're like, oh, dude, like, what's up? How's it going? And it's just like not interested in like
Yeah, and
like talking. It's like, yo, how have you been? It's like, good.
And that's
I've been
another
good.
thing. If you
Like-
let your ego react to that, you may take it personally. You may be like, "Oh, why is this person not wanting to talk to me? Like,
Yeah.
do they not like
Right,
me?"
yeah.
But 99% of the time, it's completely personal. It has nothing to do with you.
Probably got something going on in their head. that,
Right.
You know,
Some
demanding
anxiety,
their
some
attention.
something. It's like, or they feel like, "Oh, like I don't have anything to talk about. My life is boring." Right.
Yeah.
So it's like it has nothing to do with you most of the time. And even if they've convinced themselves in a situation where like a friend may be mad at you for something, or you have a problem with them and they're like not talking to you or not wanting to hang out or anything, even that's not personal, right?
Right.
99%, unless you know you wronged them in some way.
Right.
you
Yeah.
know?
Unless you hurt them.
Right.
like,
Unless you
know,
did something tangibly
fucking-
awful
Right.
and you're not dealing with it. But that's different. I think most of the time people create problems in their head
yeah.
towards
Oh,
other people,
100%, yeah.
with other people and situations in their life. And then when you sit with yourself, you're like, oh my God, all these problems I have, this is so much to deal with. Like, what do I do? Are these problems happening right now? That's always the thing I ask myself. What is actually
what's
happening
really
right
going
now?
on in this current moment?
Is
Like,
there a problem?
Yeah.
No.
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 There's not.
There's very few problems in life that are actively 24/7 affecting you, right? The only problems that are actively affecting you are the ones that you're creating in your head,
Yeah.
right? The problem is that you're interacting and engaging with all these anxious, angry, sad, whatever negative thoughts that you have in relation to these problems constantly, right?
Yeah.
So you can't escape that unless you choose to be like, you know what? No, I'm not engaging with that anymore.
Right.
Right? I'm done. And you have to choose to do that and then choose to engage with the present moment through your senses, through your body, right? Live through your body, not your mind.
Right.
Right? And that's the biggest thing that I had to realize growing up from a kid through teenage years into adulthood is that I spent most of my life just living through my mind.
Yeah. Just thinking about everything and anything. Like,
I tried to figure everything out.
yeah.
With
Or you like running
my
through
mind.
scenarios in your
Right.
head of all these
Fantasy.
like fantasy
Yep.
moments that are like, oh, like,
And it gives you
Yeah.
like a little hit of pleasure to have
Yeah.
these fantasies, right? It gives you a little satisfaction knowing that, oh, like this could happen, or like I could change this, I could do that. And it's like, but are you doing it? Right? Because you're not. You're just
Right.
thinking. You're literally, when you really look at it, what are you actually doing? Right? You're not doing anything. You're living up here, man.
Right.
You're literally interacting with
you're
your
in
thoughts.
fantasy land.
And what is happening in real life? What
Yeah.
is happening outside of this, right? Everything is happening.
Life is happening.
Life is happening.
That's where life is. Life isn't up here.
Right. It's
Like,
all here.
yeah.
Right. And that's the basic error that I think a lot of people make. And again, I don't blame them because I was taught the same thing.
Right.
Right. A lot of people.
It's hard
were.
to blame someone for stuff like that when you can easily like relate
It's
to it and
impossible.
be like, yeah,
There's
like,
no. It's
I've been
impossible to
there.
blame someone because no one actively chooses to do that. They are
Right.
taught that. They are
Yeah.
conditioned to do that.
Yeah.
Right? So I think really when you get down to it, you can notice that if you had parents or other friends, family, relative, whatever, that you grew up with who are also living that way, you can easily realize, oh,
Yeah.
fuck. That's where
it's
I
bound
learned
to
it.
happen. Yeah.
It's
like,
bound to happen.
how else? What the fuck else are you supposed to?
You are just a
learn?
product of your environment,
Yeah.
man.
And it's not their faults either because it's likely the same
They are
fucking thing.
exactly. They're also a product of
Yeah.
their environment, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's a cycle.
So that's what I really mean when I'm saying focus on yourself. Erase all that shit, right?
Yeah.
Don't worry about what's going on with this person, what's going on with that person. Can I help them? Can I do this? Can you help yourself first of all? Because you can't help anyone else unless you help yourself first.
Right. You can sure try,
And you're gonna suffer.
You're gonna suffer.
You're gonna
more,
suffer more.
You know,
and more and
you're
more.
not really gonna be much of a help then.
No, you're not.
Or
period.
you are gonna help them, and you're gonna completely lose yourself in the process. Right.
Because you're just giving.
You're
yourself.
giving everything to that other thing, right? To
Yeah.
the other person who you care about a lot, right?
Right.
It's
And
like,
what are you actually giving them though? You're not giving them anything.
yeah,
Right? I don't think when people say, "Oh, I lost myself," like I lost myself in this person or thing or situation, it's like, No, you didn't. Because if you think you lost yourself, then that means you thought you were a self, right? You were already something, right? You were never anything, right? You were just deluded into thinking that, oh, I had this set of, I was this way, I'm that way, and I gave that to someone.
Yeah.
No, you didn't, right?
Yeah.
You were never those things. You know what I mean? Like,
kind of.
And that's a whole nother conversation about self versus no self, and that's
Yeah.
But I think that's very interesting, right? Because these identities, this ego, it has self, ego, identity. It's all the same.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I mean. I'm just using a different
what
word
you're
for
identifying as,
right?
essentially.
You gave your ego to them. You gave that your identity to them, right? You identified with that person probably.
Yeah, most likely.
And all of their shit. And that's another thing that people will do is they will live through their mind and then do that with someone else or project that onto someone else, right? And that can be even more dangerous.
Yeah, I think so.
Because the energy that you're bringing together is just a massive nuke of negative shit, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. If it's like two people doing the same exact thing and
It's
then trying
toxic.
to come together and make a relationship,
Toxic.
it's like two delusional people living in fantasy lands that are different from each other. Instead of living in like real life, like this is what's happening. Like,
and you know what?
like
I did that
present moment shit.
in all of my relationships.
Absolutely,
all of them.
Yeah,
And that's the honesty. That's where you realize the truth. Is accepting that you did this. Right. This is something that you did without even realizing.
Instead of just like sticking with the like, oh, like I would never allow myself to fall into that delusion.
You're not above it.
I would never, do that. I would never not notice that or something. But it's like
you're never above it
this whole time.
You're never above it. Even now, I know I'm not above it.
Right.
I have to actively.
It's an ongoing process.
I have to avoid delusion every second of every day. I need to be aware of the grip of my ego, the way that it can manipulate me, and the way that I think, and the way that I act. I need to be aware of that, or else I know that I'm fucked, and I know I'm going to suffer.
Yeah.
Right? And that's just it. You have to accept that. You have to accept that it's an active thing all the time that you need to be aware of. But by doing that, by being more aware, you start to reduce the suffering. Just bit by bit. You start to peel away the layers, right? And it feels good.
Yeah.
It feels so good.
It's like a weight's just being removed from
Slowly,
your shoulders.
just weights are getting slowly taken off, right?
Feel lighter.
Once you get into that process, you realize there is joy to be found even just within the process, right? And peace to be found within the process. You will experience more moments of peace and joy and no anxiety or less anxiety or less depression, right?
Yeah.
And you'll see, oh, fuck, this is it. This is where the work is, right? And this is where I need to stay.
This is what I need to start cultivating.
Oh, yeah. And you just do it. You just do it over and over and over again.
It's a decision.
Every day it's a decision. Every moment is a decision. Right? You have to choose that.
Yeah.
And I think that's also when I think about meditation too. Meditation itself, if you're just sitting there for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour a day, you're like, I'm going to meditate, right? Why are you doing that? Right? Are you meditating just to like get a little moment of bliss or peace, which is fair. Like you can experience that by meditating. Absolutely, I have. But is it just for that? Or are you doing that to slow things down and try and realize what is going on in my head? What is happening, right? And translate that to your experience, your direct experience, right? In your daily life, in your day-to-day experience, right? From moment to moment. Are you meditating? Are you separating like that meditation? Like you're setting aside a period of time to actually meditate? Why are you stopping? Is my question. Because you can always meditate, right? When you're doing anything, you can almost meditate. I think there's certain things that require your mind in order to do, like maybe some work things, some school things, like you need to use your mind, but use your mind without the ego. Use your mind without the attachment, with all the bullshit, right? Use your mind as a tool.
Yeah.
Right? Use it to your advantage. Become friends with it.
It doesn't need to be working at every second of every day.
It doesn't need to be going on this fucking, escapade of thoughts, ideas, figuring out certain things in your life.
Right.
All that stuff is extra.
That's fantasy land.
And it's causing you suffering.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not saying you can just start controlling this but all you need to do is just be aware of that. Right? Be aware
it's
of
how
that.
you interact with it again.
Be aware of that. Come back to this moment. Come back to your breath. Come back to what you're doing in any moment, right? Even just right now, right? It doesn't matter what you're doing. It truly doesn't. Just do it fully, right? And be there present with it, or whoever you're with, or anything, right? And let those things go on in your mind. But the more you bring your attention and your awareness back to this moment, the less those things happen.
Yeah.
And eventually they will not happen at all.
Right.
Right.
Well, that's like the end goal, right? Is to just like
the end goal with certain things, right? But there's going to be things that come up and come up and come up. It's like a constant pulling all of your garbage out of your
like
subconscious.
Closet,
You're cleaning out your whole closet by doing this process. And so there's going to be times when, and certain days where, you're trying to be aware, you're trying to be meditative in a moment, right? Maybe not even during just meditation. You're trying to be aware of these things. You're trying to be present, right? And something may come up that's very powerful, right? Maybe something you didn't expect to come up. I've had thoughts and things come up that I was like, what the fuck is this? I'm like, what is that?
Right.
Right? And what it really is just your subconscious throwing shit out. Your mind is like, hey, pay attention to this. What is this? What is that? And it's like, the process still has to be the same.
Right.
The feelings that you're going to get from certain things are going to be powerful though, right? Especially some traumatic things that people may have gone through, some very strong emotional things that will come up. But again, over time, it becomes easier and easier and easier. And you realize that whether it's a small thing, whether it's a big thing, whether it's a somewhat emotionally charged thing, whether it's a very emotionally charged thing, the process is still the same.
Yeah.
Notice it, be with it, and come back to the moment. Let it go, or let it be.
Let it go.
Wait, what is the phrase? Let it come, let it be, let it go.
Okay. Yeah.
So you let that thought come, right? You let it be. You just observe it, right? Yeah. And then you let it go.
A good way to think of it is like if you're cloud watching, right? You know, you're gonna see the cloud come in. You can't do anything to the fucking cloud except observe it and be like, oh, cool. And then it's eventually gonna go away, and that's that.
The impermanence, man.
Yeah.
Your clouds are no different than, or your thoughts are no different than clouds,
Dude,
right?
your clouds are no different than fucking thoughts, bro.
Yeah. No, but truly, you could look at your thoughts like that, like bubbles, right? They're just little temporary bubbles that are going to pop and go away. And if you really, it's so amazing when you sit with your mind and realize how that process works. It's almost funny, right? You're like, wow, my mind is so just all over the place, inconsistent, just everything's coming in and out, going in and out. Things are always changing, right? Sometimes it can feel like there are time periods where you feel very stuck with a certain thought pattern, but again, you don't realize it yet, but you're doing that, right? You're keeping yourself stuck on that thought or those things, right? You're choosing to do that, right? Because your mind wants to keep going. Truly, I think your mind's nature is to keep going and like go new thing. It's trying to adapt. That is our human nature, is to adapt to whatever is happening in this moment, right? So your mind wants to work with you, and you should want to work with your mind, but you almost force your mind into submission and force it to be like, no, I want to analyze this. I want to figure this out.
You start ruminating over it, and then you just don't ever let it go.
And your mind will let you do that. It has and that's the thing. It's like you convince yourself that your mind is doing this to you. Your mind is fucked up. I'm crazy. I'm whatever. But you are doing this. You are choosing to engage with this shit. Maybe the mind brought it up in the first place, but that's within
it's
you.
Your choice. It's your choice of whether you're gonna interact with it or not.
It
or
always is.
Let it be.
It always is. And again, the more you let it be, the easier it is. Over and over again, man. You just keep fucking doing it. And so I think that's where the biggest priority lies, you know, is your internal relationship to what's happening externally and also what's happening internally, right? You have to be aware of the internal and external and kind of balance that. But it's hard. It's really hard, man. That balance is tough. And it's going to feel like, I think some days it feels like, like I've taken a few steps back, or like
but that's all part of it. It's all a part of it.
That's part of it, and also you realize that feeling that you're having is no different than the thoughts, right? That feeling you're having, the thing that you're feeding into, is no different, right? you notice that, oh, like sometimes I mean, if you have a feeling, right, it almost always has a thought connected to it, right? So if you look, you're like, okay, why do I feel this way? Oh, like I'm thinking that, I'm not very aware today, or like, oh, like I just got mad at like my sibling or something, or I was just being a dick, or I was just being lazy, or whatever. You're judging yourself. You realize that's what's happening, and you're just like, oh, okay, interesting. And you don't, that's what I'm saying, like, you have to give a fuck and not give a fuck about that, right? You have to realize that, yes, I need to notice this, but I don't need to do anything about it. I don't need to become attached to that thing. It doesn't matter what the thing is, the thing that you're trying to figure out in your head, right? There's no difference between, something that's like not that big of a deal in your head and something that is a huge deal, right?
Right.
Because it's the same. You still have to do the same shit.
You're giving it the like, if you're thinking it's
the fuel.
Something else is a big deal compared to another, it's because you're making it a big deal.
It's the comparison,
another, right? It's how you're interacting with it. It's like how you're gonna make it a huge thing, even though it's possibly not, or
absolutely
you might downsize something or downplay something else, But it's like it's all on the same level. It's all just something that you gotta sit with,
right? And I don't know, man.
Yeah,
I think for me, on my journey of realizing that and kind of deconditioning and all that stuff, there's been so many different waves. It's ebbed and flow. My motivation to do this, right? It's ebbed and flow so much over time. And I think that's normal, to be honest. I really do. You can call it a spiritual path. You can call it just trying to directly discover what is happening in your experience, trying to alleviate suffering. Doesn't matter. Along that way, you're going to hit, some bumps, right? And you're going to have...
absolutely.
It's bound to happen, right? And you have to just accept it. Again, go with that, right? Just be with that. And that's another thing, too, the feeling of needing to be productive, right?
Yeah.
Because even with this kind of work, this spiritual work, this internal work, you can start to identify with that.
Yeah.
Right? And that's dangerous. That's even more dangerous, I would say, than some other things, right?
Okay.
Because at least if you're living in delusion with some external, like, whatever shit, you're just like, whatever. You're just chilling down here.
Right.
But if you're living in delusion with this spiritual work, if you're like, oh, like, like, I need to do this. Like, I need to do this or else, right? Like, I don't have time. Like, oh my God. Like, you create a whole thing around it. You create this whole ball of suffering around it, right? And it's like you're trying to alleviate suffering, but you're causing more suffering by identifying with that.
Right, yeah.
You're not fucking Buddha. You're not like some fucking, right? Like, you're not just gonna figure this stuff out. I truly believe, at least in my experience, this is something that takes years. Unless
yeah, absolutely. Fucking no one's gonna just understand all this stuff within like a week, a month, a year.
Right.
Like,
no, I mean, I think if you really dedicate yourself to a practice of directly understanding your experience through meditation and other spiritual work, you can get through a lot of this stuff quickly, but that takes a massive amount of effort and time commitment, right?
Well, you need to like that would be like if you were to go on some like fucking retreat
or
like,
multiple, right?
Yeah, and just like dedicate all of your time to doing that,
which I think is worth doing for sure.
I think it could be absolutely.
But I think for most people it's just not practical because we're living in modern society. We're living in America, right?
Got jobs, got family.
We have jobs, family, shit to do, and part of me sometimes is like, damn, I wish I didn't have to deal with all that because I think it's way more interesting I think it's way more interesting to work with all this internal stuff. And I think the ultimate goal, if there is one, is finding the end to all this suffering, right? And finding a place of complete equanimity and complete just joy and peace. And I think that does exist, right? But it takes a ton of work to get there. And like you're just peeling back layers and layers and layers, like hundreds and thousands of layers until you have nothing left. And there's nothing, right? You're not anything. And then you're just pure awareness, right? You're just, you can choose to do whatever the fuck you want.
Right.
And that's what I think enlightenment is to some extent, right?
To some extent, sure.
I mean, I can't put
who fucking knows really, but like.
Right, but I think that's kind of the goal of a lot of people on the spiritual path is like reaching that point of just pure awareness, pure being, right?
Yeah.
And then just enjoying life, right? Or something like that. But again, for most people, it's not realistic. And that's okay. I think you can still live a normal life. You can have your cake and eat it too, in a sense, right?
Yeah.
You can enjoy some distractions. You can enjoy some hobbies. You can enjoy this or that. You can, get into relationships, fuck around with this, do that. But again, you have to work within those things. You can't just do those things and be like, oh, I'll figure that stuff out later. It's no different, right? Whether you're living in a mountain alone, trying to just meditate, or you're fucking, living in modern society, in a city, doing that, it's no different, right? The work is still the same,
right?
But you just have to put your priorities in different places, right? And work with what your experience is, because it's going to be very different than a monk's living in the mountain.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
That is the ideal condition, because you don't have to worry about anything else.
Right, besides just doing your own internal work.
Right, in a sense, it's easier to do it that way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's just purely that. And that's why people become monks, and people dedicate their lives to it, because why would you not, right? Like, that's the biggest goal of all, is to alleviate the suffering and understand our purpose here. And so people do that, and I get that. But I don't know if I would ever do that. I don't know. Maybe I
think it would be cool, like, to go on like a retreat and like try that out, like a week or fucking month.
I think it would be
down, but like,
I think it'd be something I would do if I was I've been serious about this stuff, but I think I would need to very much commit to that and be super serious about it.
It's a huge commitment to try to, like,
it is.
Even go to one of the retreats.
Yeah, because those are 10 days, no phone, no talking to people, just purely meditating.
Are you really ready for something like that?
It's intense, but like that's kind of the point. It's like concentrated, right? It's concentrated meditation work, spiritual work, consciousness work, and by doing that, you're expediting the process of deconditioning, right, and reconditioning. Right. And it's really valuable to have that, for sure. Like, there's no argument against that. Even if you're someone who's not necessarily trying to like speed run enlightenment or anything, like you can still go to those retreats and get a lot out of it. And I've talked to people who have, and I think that's why, again, I would definitely go to a retreat at some point. Yeah. But I would want to do it for the right reasons, and in a situation where I'm ready to do that.
Not just
really
for willy-nilly, like, fucking,
and not for fun or anything. Yeah. That shit is not going to be fun, right? But you're gonna get a ton out of it.
Yeah, at the end of it, you might look back and be like, oh, that was a really fun experience. But like, the process of like sitting there for however long it's gonna be and just like going through all the rigorous like internal work that you're gonna be doing, like, probably isn't all that like enjoyable.
It really can be tough, man. Like, you will have to deal with things that you've never dealt with. Yeah, in those situations, not even going on a retreat, if you meditate on a daily basis, things will come up that really surprise you. And feelings, physical sensations, emotions, thoughts that will come up that you're like, what the fuck? Like, that's crazy. But you also have the opposite. Certain days where you're feeling like, wow, like, I figured it out. This is so blissful. I'm so at peace, which is great. But you cannot attach to that. Right.
Because it's, again, only temporary for that
it's
moment.
Only temporary. Yeah. Those are just states. Those are just the way that you're feeling on that day, right? The biggest thing that you have to realize, it's all about the journey. It's all about the entire experience and all the things that you're doing on a long-term basis, right? It's not enough to just, oh, yeah, I meditated for a few months and I felt really good, so then I just stopped because, like, I'm good, right? What?
Yeah, it's not,
Like, no.
I think that's kind of what I did, like, when I was at school. I did too, like I was like interested in like the Wim Hof like breathing method thing, and I was like doing meditations, and then after a while I was like, okay, like, yeah, like, I'm feeling pretty good, and then I just like kind of fell off with it, and then like easily slipped back into like the monotony of like my day-to-day, like, not really doing shit that's like meaningful,
right, not giving a fuck.
Go to classes and then just go back home, and
that's like pure not giving a fuck.
Just
basically.
Do nothing.
And I think that happened to me too. I think I started meditating like in 2019 in August or something. And I was doing that for a good few months, 3 or 4 months. And then I was experiencing some great benefits from doing it. And then I think I just stopped because I got distracted with all the suffering that I was dealing with before. I was in a toxic relationship. I was in school. I was like, oh, I'll just go back to all that shit because that's what I'm used to. Right. I think these habitual things are very strong. When you've done them for years, when you've practiced these things for years, it's so easy to fall back into those holes, man.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you've created a new habit, like I've had streaks of meditating for 4 months, 3 months, my longest is right now almost 5 months, but even that, like, I don't feel like I can just like coast along and be like, oh,
right,
like,
be like, okay, this is it.
no, because you have to consciously decide to do that every single day, right? And that's the only option. And it's, of course, it gets easier. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Once you like have, I think when it comes to meditating, if you force yourself to sit down 5 to 10 minutes every day for like a month, that'll be pretty ingrained to some extent, right? Depending on certain conditions. But I think there's a phrase like 22 days to make a habit or break a habit or something like that.
I don't know.
But I believe, it takes at least a few weeks of doing something every day and being conscious of it to really make it a habit. And even then, though, you can still fall into other habits. And it's like, you create that new habit and it can be somewhat strong, but you got to remember all those other things are way stronger because you've spent years and months building those up.
Yeah.
So you have to be aware of that.
It's easy to just fall right.
You got to be careful. Yeah. So I don't know, man. Don't get fucking complacent, man. Like, stay strapped.
Yeah, stay strapped. That's
For real.
What's up. Yeah.
Stay spiritually strapped.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I think meditation and spirituality has a lot to do with these topics because the essence of it, at least in my mind, is truly working with your own experience and discovering what is real, what is not real, what is causing me suffering, what is not. All of these questions that you've had all your life are answered through spiritual work in my eyes. And I think people look at it like, oh, meditation's not my thing, or like, oh, that's not my thing. You can still do this stuff without meditating, but you kind of are meditating one way or another, whatever you want to call it. Fuck the label, right? Yeah. Just work with your experience. Call it that, right? I don't give a fuck what you like. It doesn't have to be Buddhism. It doesn't have to be anything, right? Even if the essence of Buddhism is see for yourself, go see for yourself. It has no labels, no requirements. It's just see for yourself, period. That's it. So I don't see what's constrictive about that.
Yeah, right? No, it's very open-ended.
The only constrictions that you will have about that are the ones that you're creating, right? So if you have any ideas, preconceived notions about meditation, Buddhism, all that stuff, drop it, right? Drop it and just try it. What's the worst that's going to happen? You meditate 5 to 10 minutes every day for like a month. There's nothing bad that can happen from that.
Yeah, really.
Truly. And it's not hard.
No.
It's not. The only thing that's hard is just choosing to do it every day.
Right. It's the practice of it.
It's
the practice of making it a habit.
It's moving your other habits out of the way and prioritizing that.
Right.
But it's only 5 minutes. How many minutes are in a day, man? Like, it's crazy.
I don't even know.
I forgot the number, but like there are, again, I understand people have different schedules. They're busy, whatever. But
everyone has 5 minutes.
In the grand scheme of things, man, like, what are your it's all priorities, man. It's all priorities.
Yeah.
And what do you choose? What are you giving a fuck about now that you think is more important than understanding your experience and why you're suffering? Because I don't think there's anything more important than that, truly. And there's such a weird dissonance between, I feel like, us and a lot of older generations and even some people within our own generation, right? People in their 20s. It's like, what are your priorities? Right? Yeah. I'm not saying I'm better for you for prioritizing this stuff, but I know that my suffering is going down and down and down because I'm doing this, and you're suffering because you're attached to your ideas about the way you need to live. Right? That's just clear to me. Yeah. Right? And I can see that because I've had to do the work myself and realize it within myself. Yeah. Right? But I can't do the work for you. Right. Right? And I don't know. I think it's really weird talking to people sometimes because they will be like, oh, like, how's it going? Like, oh, like you're feeling sad, you're feeling shitty, whatever. Like, why is that? Like, how's work? How's this? Like, you're dealing with all the branches of suffering, but not the source of suffering, right? You're dealing with all these little external things like, oh, like maybe you should talk to your boss. Maybe you should do that. Fuck all that, man. Fuck all that. Like, stop trying to change the experiences themselves, right? You can't, right? You really can't. I mean, you can. There are certain things. There's certain things you have control over, like we talked about before. If your job is toxic, shitty, awful, quit. fucking quit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else to tell you. If it's that awful that it's making you fucking... And I'm sure, Tyler, I know you have a lot to say about that.
Yeah, but I shouldn't, because I'm not going to...
Right, but like, I've been in that situation too, man, where it's like, you just know this is not right for you at this moment in your life.
If you feel miserable working and you're like worrying like, oh, but I need to find a job and get it lined up first, or like, oh, like, what am I going to do about finances? Like, you'll figure it out. Just fucking get out of there.
What's more important, man? Like, you're in all this time that you're spending trying to figure it out, and, you know, like, oh, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about that. You're busy being miserable when you could be just getting rid of all that shit and starting fresh. You know, like, you have to prioritize the happiness, man. You have to prioritize your own peace of mind. All these things can wait. All these external things can wait. Bro, what if you die tomorrow? Like, you're trying to, like, deal with your shitty ass job. You're trying to deal with your shitty ass relationship, all these shitty ass things in your life, and you're just waiting for them to change.
Yeah.
They're not going to change.
Trying to do anything.
They're not going to change, man. Unless you choose to. Or unless you change your relationship to these things, and then they can start to change. Once you truly accept a lot of it's the idea of you either accept it or you try to change it, right? You accept it or you do change it, right? Because I think people spend a lot of time trying to change it and realizing that it's impossible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but like, what even are they even like trying, or is it so just? Like, I
think some
mentally trying, but not actively like.
Some people can convince
you're
themselves.
in a shitty relationship and you're trying to you know, make it work or figure something out.
Dude,
but
that's
it's like, you know what's really gonna help you, like, not be in a shitty relationship. Fucking end it. Like,
get to the source, man. Cut it from the roots. Like, that's the thing, man. I've heard a lot of people say that about multiple different things, relationships, their job. Like, oh yeah, I'm trying to do this. Like, I'm working on this. What does that mean? Right? Are you really? Be honest with yourself. I don't think you are. You know, and I don't think people are honest enough with themselves. Yeah. To be honest, I think that's one of the biggest issues is that they just won't. People will lie to themselves forever, for so long, and it causes so much suffering, man. Because it's like running around with your head cut off, and you're wondering like, why does it hurt? Like, what happened to my head? And it's like, you did it to yourself, right? Yeah. But it's never done and over with, unless you're dead. Right. Unless you're dead, there's always hope. Right. You can always turn that around. Yeah. There's never a place where you're too far gone, bro. If you're like married with kids, you're with someone who you're absolutely miserable with. You have kids. You have a horrible job. You're depressed, bro. Like, that is awful. But you can still get out of that situation. Yeah, you can still make that. You can still make that work somehow. But it's hard. Yeah. You really gotta. It's half of it. I'm not gonna put like any numbers on it, but part of it is practical, and part of it is internal, spiritual, like all that stuff. So you got to do both. It's not one or the other. It's both.
No, yeah, it's got to be a combination of both.
Right, and again, that has a lot to do with the giving a fuck and not giving a fuck. Right, you have to balance those two things out. Right. I don't know, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know. I've had some experiences lately where I'm like just realizing how fucking down people are, man. And I think that's another aspect we should talk about is how hard it is to try to raise yourself up, try to work on all these things while other people around you are actively suffering and choosing to do that. Yeah. Because once you start to do this work, you realize the people around you are just like, ugh. And it's hard to be around that sometimes. Yeah. Because it's dragging you down. Yeah, it does. It feels like it's dragging you down. I should say.
It doesn't have to.
It does not have
to bring you down, but you notice it and you feel it, and it's like actively kind of affects you in that way if you allow it to.
Yeah, and I think that was a thing that I'm still kind of working on, but I've had to work on at different points in my journey, especially when it comes to like my family members and shit. It's like, I think the biggest thing you can do is have compassionate pity. Yeah. When you realize that someone's suffering, you have compassion, which all compassion is just being with their suffering, right? Just be with them and just sit with them.
Oh, yeah. It's like what you sent me the other day.
I think that's a great way to put it. I mean, that's C-O-M means with, right? And passion means suffering. Yeah. With suffering. Just be with their suffering. Right? You don't have to do anything for them.
You don't have to suffer with them.
That's the big thing. You get attached to the idea that you need to suffer with other people because they are suffering,
Mm-hmm.
right? If something bad happens, you need to feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's not it.
Yeah.
You never ever have to do that. Even
It's silly.
even in the most extreme
practice.
situations, man.
Yeah.
Even when you lose someone,
Mm-hmm.
right? A death, someone leaving your life,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's not necessary to do
Mhm.
that. It may feel like it's necessary. That force makes it feel like you need to do it. You
Mhm.
need to feel bad. You need to suffer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't.
Mm-hmm.
You really don't. And I think realizing that has a lot of layers to it, because again, it's like you've trained yourself to be like, okay, like this situation sucks balls, and like I don't know what to do, and
Mhm.
I just feel sad. But like, just view those emotions as sensations, man. Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you feel sad, so what? What is that going to do to you?
Yeah.
What is that going to make you do? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to react to that sadness, that anger, that frustration, or are you just going to watch them and let
Mhm.
them be?
Because
Right?
what else can you really do?
You
at the
can't
end
do
of the day?
shit with it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this isn't about like just becoming an emotionless rock that doesn't react to anything,
Mhm.
right? I think that's a misconception a lot of people have.
Definitely.
But all I'm saying is non-reaction to everything, right? Don't react to anything.
Mm-hmm.
Internal, external, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You have an awareness that you don't even realize is just completely non-biased, non-judgmental, and you are that awareness, whether
Mhm.
you realize it or not. You have the ability to be aware of all these things that are happening and just sit in that, right?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of something that I've
I
realized, is that
definitely think so too.
behind all these things is your awareness,
Mhm.
right? And that's where you want to reside,
Yeah.
because it's peace.
Right.
It's complete peace. There's nothing else to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's simple, right? No matter the level of suffering that's happening externally, no
Mhm.
matter what's going on in your life, that awareness is always there,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you can always go back to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the beautiful part of it, I think. And it gives me so much comfort, and I'm so grateful for it,
Mm-hmm.
that every human has that capability
Right.
to just sit in that awareness and just be content,
Mm-hmm.
right?
But you got to make the choice to do
You
so.
have to, and you have to do it over and over and over again. And I think this is where it comes down to, this is why we meditate. This is why
Mhm.
you spend time sitting in that awareness when nothing's going on,
Right.
right? When things are calm in your life, when there's not really any problems or drama or anything.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing that in preparation for when shit goes inevitably off the wall, right?
Mm-hmm.
When shit hits the fan, you're ready,
Yeah.
right? You're ready to remain equanimous, right?
Equanimous.
Yeah, equanimity.
Oh,
right.
okay. I was like,
You're just
I was like, what the fuck is that?
you're ready to remain neutral
Okay.
to whatever happens,
Uh huh.
because you've practiced remaining neutral to whatever happens,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you're meditating, you're just sitting with what is,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's all you need to do.
Yeah.
You have all these thoughts, you have all these feelings when you're meditating, you have a pain in your back, just come back to your breath
Mm-hmm.
and just observe that,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's it. It's that
Okay.
simple.
Yeah.
Do that over and over again for long enough, and do that in real life
Mm-hmm.
in certain moments enough, and it will become natural.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize that almost is, I think, a human's natural state of being.
Mm-hmm.
It feels right to do that, in my
Yeah.
experience.
Mm-hmm.
It feels more right than any way that I've tried to live before, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I've realized that my suffering is greatly, greatly diminished almost to nothing because of that, right? That's very simple understanding that attachment to anything that's going on internally or externally is causing me suffering,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I just have to let it all go, let it all be.
Right.
It's a combination of that, letting it come, letting it be, and then letting it go.
It's a balance.
It's all that, all that shit.
Yeah.
I've gone on a huge tangent about meditation and stuff, but I don't think it's even that much.
It's
of
not irrelevant.
It's,
no.
I think that's, so again, the bridge between, like, we started talking about high school, right?
Mhm.
And like how I felt and how you felt
Mhm.
very similarly in high school with being indifferent towards things.
Mm-hmm.
And then we connected that to our spiritual meditation stuff, all that, and how that has translated to that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people who lived in their minds when they were younger, who were just very caught up in all that shit, which is most people, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
They have a inclination to go down this path,
Yeah.
right? Because you're trying to figure out what the fuck's going on, right?
Uh-huh.
That's a very basic human desire, I believe.
Yeah.
What is my purpose? What is the point of all this? Right? I think that's the video we were just watching before too, right?
Oh,
With
yeah.
fucking Muji.
Yeah, what's the point of life?
And there's no crazy answer. That's the thing.
No, yeah.
You know? But you have to see that for yourself. Right? And I think, again, when it comes to giving a fuck about things and not giving a fuck about things, it has everything to do with this idea of, why am I suffering? What is happening? All of these things are all intermingled, right? You have to decide what's worth giving a fuck about and what's not.
Yeah.
And by the way of doing that is through this spiritual work, through this meditation, through trying to be more conscious, trying to be more aware of things, right? Yeah. It's all intermingled. So, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing I could impart to people about this stuff. But, I mean, what else? Are there any little things that we could think of, like, that would be beneficial? I'm trying to think.
I don't know.
I think something, obviously, you know, like I said before in previous podcasts, I went vegan recently, which I think is a very good thing to be aware of. But same kind of concept, honestly. Like, just, again, being aware of things on a very micro level, even though you eat 3 meals a day, I would think, right? Or just you eat however many meals a day. So, like, again, what am I doing, right? What am I consuming, and where is that from, right? That's a very basic idea that I'm starting to really understand.
Yeah.
Being aware of of things on a very minute level, right? What are the layers of, like, shit underneath everything that you're doing and experiencing, right?
Yeah.
It all seems very boring and, like, monotonous on a surface level, right? Like, oh, I'm just eating this food, or, like, I'm just doing this thing, and it's like whatever. But, like, when you're, you know, eating a meal, where did this come from? Who made this? How nutritional is this? What am I putting into my body?
Yeah.
Why am I putting this into my body? All of those questions, I think if you ask those questions too, you're contemplating. You're raising your level of awareness, your level of consciousness, right? So that has a lot to do with it. And not to mention your diet is super important to feeling okay physically. You have to honor your body too.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
And to be honest, like, I'll shill for fucking plant-based diet all day. It feels fucking amazing, right? So maybe look into that. If you feel like shit physically, like your body feels like shit, look at what you're putting into it.
Yeah.
Look at what you're doing to it. Look at what you're doing to it in every moment, right? Are you fucking laying on a couch all day with your back twisted up, not stretching, not exercising, barely moving? You're sitting at your computer chair all day. You're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to herniate a disc, right? Like, it's very obvious, right? But you don't realize it because you're just so caught up in all this shit.
Right.
Right? So, again, it's no different. It's the same concept, but don't get too caught up in one thing, right? You could figure out your diet, you could figure out exercise, but that's not where you stop. That can't be where you stop.
It shouldn't be where you just
and
stop.
I think a lot of people use, I mean, this is just one example, but exercise is something that a lot of people will use as like oh, I can lean back on that, right? Like, I just need to work out and I'll feel better.
It's like a safety net. Like,
it's like again, it's just a way of feeling okay for a moment, right?
Yeah.
Like, because when you exercise, of course, like, during the exercising, it can feel like shit, like it's agonizing, whatever. It can be a hard workout. But then after, you get this flood of chemicals in your brain. You're like, oh, I feel so good, right? Like, and that's real. It's biological. That's part of our nature.
Yeah.
And your body needs to exercise in order to not break down, right? On some level.
Right.
But some people become obsessive about bodybuilding, trying to sculpt their physique, trying to change their meat sack to make themselves happy, right? And it's like, bro, you could become the most chiseled, beautiful, fucking model-esque motherfucker in the world, and you still miss the point, right? What the process of doing that? Did you enjoy it? Was it for the right reasons? Were you trying to alleviate suffering by changing something externally? What about the internal, right? What was happening there? Right? And that's, again, it's internal first, always, and then external. And then you can kind of, you know? But absolutely. you can't start out with something external and be like, I want to change something internal that I don't like. It doesn't work that way. Right? No. It just doesn't. No. And I don't know how many times I think people need to realize that themselves, and that can happen through getting sick enough of something, right? You're like, holy fuck, like, this is miserable.
Right.
Like I keep trying to do this, like I keep trying to work out, and like I still feel like shit, and I'm still depressed, and I'm, like shit like that. But again, it's very easy to convince yourself that like, oh, like this is fine. Like, oh, I'll just keep trying to do this, or I'll do this a different way. Maybe I just need to change up my diet or my exercise routine or whatever. And it's like, you can micro adjust and do all this stuff, but you're still going to come to the same fucking conclusion, man.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I think it's a shame that people never really, I think it takes sometimes another person to be like, hey, wake the fuck up, like.
Definitely, yeah. Snap out of it, bro.
Or it can be in a more like calm like way, like just like, hey, like this is happening, like don't you realize this, like. And that's what the point of therapy too is I think that's where it can come in, is just having someone to reflect what's happening to you, right? It's not, a therapist isn't like creating some crazy like conspiracies about what's happening in your life and why you're sad and depressed and whatever. It's just being like, hey, do you see this? Look at this. And let's figure this out. Right? That's all it is. At least to me. That's what a good therapist should be.
I think so as well.
But yeah, I think people are scared. They're scared to look in the mirror, man. And I don't blame them. It's pretty ugly when you look in the mirror sometimes, man. It really is. It's scary as fuck. Because you realize, I think initially there's a feeling of almost guilt and wanting to beat yourself up about the way that your life is, Yeah. You're like, damn, like I did this, like I've been doing this, like why was I so stupid, like why was I so ignorant?
Yeah.
But again, sit with those feelings, be like, you know what, don't be compassionate with yourself, right? It's okay.
Yeah.
Right? It's okay that you were like this. It's okay that I was the way I was in the past, right?
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's just accepting it.
It's completely okay. And I think it's another important thing is just completely accepting and then letting go of your past. Realizing that you are not your past. The past version of you is dead. Completely dead. Right? Even the past version of me 5 minutes ago is dead as fuck.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't matter. And so it's very freeing to do that, I think. And also, same thing with the future, right? Like that doesn't fucking exist yet. So I don't know how that is you, right? Your ideas about what you should be in the future are just ideas, right? They're not real. And the longer you spend ruminating on what you could or could not be in the future, the more you're just taking away from the present moment and what you could be doing, actually doing to take steps to be better in the future, right? So I don't know. I think all of these things are just, it's all connected in my mind, man. It's like just like, oh fuck, like this, that, but no one can tell you that or do that for you,
right?
No one. And that's the dissonance that happens with a lot of people, I think. And I try and talk to people about their stuff. Like I love helping people with this kind of stuff, but ultimately it's like, I think I've talked to a lot of people and it's like they want some answer or like some magical thing, and it's like there's not. I'm sorry, man. Like, but just do the work and you'll find your own answer. Yeah. That's the great thing, is like, I promise you it will work if you make it work for yourself, right? And just put in the fucking time and the effort in the right places. Right. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm fucking feeling it today, man. Let me tell you. I'm going off. Yeah. But honestly, dude, like, I feel so good lately, like just physically, mentally. And again, that's another thing too. When you feel good, when you feel bad, hold on to those things and let go of those things in the same exact way, right? Yeah. Like, enjoy, and it's okay. Like, if you feel good, enjoy that, right? But don't hold on to it. Realize that it's going to pass, and don't try and cling on to it as it's leaving, right? Because that just causes suffering.
It's gonna come and go.
It's going to, and then again, you might feel like shit, and certain days or it could be days, weeks, months, years. This is another thing too. I remember talking to people about this. It's like sometimes your body and your mind are telling you that you need a break. Yeah. Right. And when you push against that, it can cause a lot of damage. Right. I've had times in my life where my body felt physically, and my mind too, it kind of goes hand in hand, just felt so blah, so unmotivated, so like whatever. And it can be very little moments or it can be longer periods. But it's like the cycle, right? That's part of the cycle of being human, right? there's nothing you can do to avoid that cycle. Even if you're the most enlightened, awesome, whatever. The only thing you can do is change your reaction to that cycle.
Yeah.
Right? And just accept whatever's happening as it's happening. Right? So on times when I feel super lazy, super unmotivated, super unproductive, whatever, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I am just
It's
like,
okay to do
let's
nothing
go with
sometimes.
it.
Yeah.
It needs to be okay to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we put here to do something?
I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't think so. What the fuck do
Yeah.
we need to do?
I don't know.
What's your fucking mission? Why do you have a mission?
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't. I'm just chill. Another phenomenon that's been happening recently, my days are starting to feel connected, right? Like, there's no, like, I don't feel like there's, like, a stopping point. Like, I'm starting a new day. Like, it's just, like, a constant stream of just, like, okay, I'm experiencing life. I'm experiencing life. I'm experiencing life. And that's a trippy-ass feeling. It's beautiful, though, because it's kind of eliminating this concept of time a little bit. It's whittling away at it, and it's like, time is fucking meaningless, dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's an interesting thing to talk about, the concept of time,
Mm-hmm.
right? We assign all these values and labels to days, months, years, hours, minutes, all this shit, right? For what, right? And there is a practical use, so let's not bullshit ourselves, right? We have to, we need time for work purposes, I guess, in order to track when people should work, when people aren't working, in order to, I guess, here's the thing though, it's like, I was gonna say like weather and like sunlight and shit, but that's a very like irrelevant thing too, because in some parts of the world there are times where there's light outside for months straight. There's no nighttime, right?
Yeah.
And
right?
opposite.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I forgot what part of the world specifically I heard that recently, but there's some parts of the world where it's like sunlight for months and then nighttime for months, right? And then, so what is time then?
Yeah.
I think I read a story recently where I think a Scandinavian country was deciding to erase time in their government and everything.
Really?
Completely.
Interesting.
And that is crazy to think about. You know, imagine how different your life would feel without time.
Right.
Imagine how much, well, first of all, look at how much time dictates everything that you do and think and feel, right? What time is it? Oh, what time is it? Do I need to do something?
Yeah.
Oh, what's next? Like, oh, am I wasting time? Like, oh my God, like I'm enjoying this moment. Like, what time is it? I don't want it to stop. You know, all that attachment having to do with time. That's another thing, man. And once you start to realize that that's happening, you can be like, wow, I don't need this. This is causing me suffering.
Yeah.
Right? Or this is taking me out of the moment and causing minute suffering. You know? I think that's huge, man, to realize that. And that's what's been happening for me a bit recently is like, I don't need to be doing anything. I don't need to think about doing anything. I don't need to. And to be honest, this can be a bit tricky though, right? Because I've had moments like my short-term memory is not getting worse, but it's like, I don't care about it, you know? So it's like, there'll be times where like, oh, like I know I have to do homework or something or turn in an assignment or whatever. And it's like, I'll still turn it in on time, but I'll like forget about it completely. Cause like, I'm just, again, trying to be present, trying to just not even interact with the shit because I have a lot of free time right now, but it can be counterintuitive sometimes because you're like, you totally forget about this stuff and you're like, oh shit, you know? So time is, it's ingrained into our society and you can't avoid it, I guess, unless you move to the Scandinavian country, which fucking I might. I just might.
Just might. Yeah.
But you can't, I don't know. You really got to be careful about how you interact with time because it's dangerous, man.
Yeah.
And it's another way of conditioning you. It's another pitfall to fall into, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I think that's it. We hit a lot of interesting things, man. I don't know. I love this stuff. I think we could talk about this stuff forever. Yeah. At least I could. I could do like a 6-hour presentation. We'll do a triple feature podcast. Oh my God! But we're coming up on like 1:45, so we can kind of start talking about some conclusionary stuff and just kind of giving it a nice wrapping, you know, a nice little closer. Oh man, I don't know. I think this is good shit, man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really glad. I'm very grateful for the fact that I've grown up to be the way I am now. and I've been able to realize certain things because I've met certain people and I was introduced to these ideas and all this stuff. And I think a really cool thing to think about is the fact that, we're doing this podcast and people may be introduced to these ideas and things that I'm saying and things that you're saying, and that may plant a seed, as insignificant as it may be in this moment.
Yeah.
It may plant a little seed that causes them to change down the line or tomorrow or whatever. Like,
it's at least introducing ideas to people.
It's amazing. And again, that's where it's worth being open. You never know what it feels so. That's another thing people get wrapped up in, is like, I want to help other people. I want to do things for other people. You can do that so simply by just focusing on yourself and trying to be the best version of yourself.
And that's what we've said before too. Like, if you're focusing on yourself and taking care of yourself and working to be a better person and all that, people notice that, and it might inspire them to do the same thing.
It rubs off on them in the most subtle ways, and that you will never even realize sometimes. Right. Like, it may be something that they internalize that you never even find out about, but you are affecting them. You are actively doing this, whether you realize it or not.
Absolutely.
So that's even more incentive to be aware of these things and to do this work, because it's always happening. Yeah. Right? All the people around you are always being affected by it. So would you rather it be a positive effect that you're having or a negative effect?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
If you truly care about other people, which so many people claim to, right? I'm such an empath. I'm such that. If you truly do, then be a self-empath, right? Prioritize yourself, man. Like, that's all you need to fucking worry about, and the rest will come. It will just happen naturally. Yeah. I don't know, man. Like, it's that, in my mind, it's become that simple. But I think a lot of people have made excuses and whole ass stories about, oh, I'm different. Oh, I'm not like that. Yeah. It's like, again.
It's like they don't think it's possible for them to get like that.
Right. And, oh my God, I've had conversations with my parents, some older people, even some people our age. It's like you're, again, confining yourself to this little box of what I am, what I can't be, what I am. I just said that twice, but but really, it's just sad, man, because you've already decided this is life, this is my standard, this is who I am, and that's it. But why? Yeah. Why can't that change, man? Right. You really think, whether you're religious or not, whatever you think about why we're here, why would you be here to be the same throughout your life, right? Why would you be put here to be fucking miserable and depressed and anxious? It just doesn't make sense. So question that. Yeah. Start there, man. Just question, like, is this how life should be? Why is this like this? Just question all that shit. Start there, man. It's so simple, but I don't know. I think some people may feel like if they start to question it, it'll break their illusion, like their ego, their identity structure.
Is that. I mean, to what I would think.
And dude, some people can go nuts. Yeah. Once they start to do that, or if they do that, and that's another thing with like psychedelics. Like, some people will get a glimpse of that and they'll freak the fuck out, right? And I'm sure, like, I haven't personally done psychedelics, but it's like I've heard many stories about that. Right. Yeah. Right. It's funny. And you can make some spiritual progress and understanding through using psychedelics, but it's just a glimpse, and you're going to come back to, your normal, right? Your normal sober mind, and you have to deal with that. But there's something to be said about that, right? Yeah. But again, don't depend on that, right? Don't depend on that for shit, right? No drug, no anything is going to give you what you're looking for inside, right? Nothing. It may give you a glimpse, right? But it's not the whole picture, right? Yeah. You're just getting a small little part of the picture. Exactly. And I think that's another thing I would stress is, like, you may feel like at certain points, like, oh, like, I figured this out, like, I don't need to do the work anymore. Like, there's infinite layers, man. Yeah. Infinite. Like, I shit you not. There is no end. But that's kind of the fun part of it, is like, you can just keep on peeling back these layers and layers and layers. And it's like, you can get deeper and deeper and deeper. And once you get to a certain point, you can't go back, right? You can't become unconscious, right? And I think in Buddhism, this is called stream entry, right? It's getting into the stream of, out of the cycle of samsara, suffering, just constant suffering, the cycle of suffering, and into the stream of just, like, floating, right? Okay, and I don't want to get too, like, specific about that, but that's the basic idea, right? And yeah, I don't know, man. I think that's that's the fucking goal, at least in my mind, is to just get. I don't want to get to a certain level or state of being and then just stop. I just want to keep going and see what happens. Right. I just want to get lost in the process and enjoy the journey. Right.
Yeah.
It's not about the journey. It's not about the destination. It's about the journey.
Absolutely.
Right. That's the way you should look at everything in life, man. Every little fucking thing. And that's it. Got any closing thoughts? Any little fun facts? Any little cute things to say?
No. I mean, I think we've covered just about all we could.
I mean,
I'm sure there's more we could talk about.
Bro,
I just can't think of it.
Bro, there's always shit. Yeah. Like, there's been moments in the past podcast where I'm like, oh, like, damn, I should have said that or brought that up. But
it's okay.
I really don't care.
Later ones.
Yeah, and like, it's not. You hit the main things, right? Like, there's nothing I'm like, oh fuck, like we really should have brought that up. Like, totally forgot about that. Like, because we're talking about very general stuff too. It's like not like we need to talk about certain things, and that's kind of the nature of the way our podcast is too. You know, so I like that, and I hope other people like that too.
Same.
But all right, well,
yeah.
If we're good, then we're good.
We're good.
It's been real. It's a chill thing.
It's a chill
Signing
thing.
Out.
Peace out.
Peace.